Right, yeah, welcome back to part 2. Well, this is actually a unique video in its own right. I've just explained the months and I took that warm hemp shirt off. It's a bloody nice shirt to wear too, but it does get rather tropical around here. So now we're discussing how the seasons work above the flat Earth. And we don't want any holes in the Earth for everything to leak out. Okie dokie. Rightio, we've patched the hole. It's all good. So as you can see, it matches with there. We've got the Tropic of Cancer around there. We've got the equator around here. And we've got the Tropic of Cancer, as I'm starting to get used to the new names from Capricorn and Cancer to the Tropic of Cancer and Kappa. Because we have to own these names and take them back somehow to make our own calendar, our own system, and something that we can live by independently, that they can't take from us. This is the way you fight back. You don't fight back with swords. You fight back with words, with brains, and the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. So basically, that's a straight line to Polaris. Now, this is a theory I'm working on, okay, and I'm sure that the hive mind will help me out a bit on this, but I think it works. Because if we look at the sun hitting here on the Tropic of Cancer, hitting here on the equinoxes, and hitting here on the Tropic of Cancer, what we basically can do is draw lines directly to the center, and we'll do it here as well. Basically, more or less the model. Now, these are all supposed to be equal distances. So from the North Pole to Cancer, to the equator, and the distance from the equator to each of those is equal, and that should be about equal as well. So use your imagination. I didn't say I'm an artist. So if we then say that this is our firmament, then what we also have down below, now it's really, really hard to draw scale, and thank goodness the Globebusters on one of their previous videos had a really good attempt to it. I think Jaron finally got it. I think he might have watched some of my videos. I'm not dobbing him in or nothing. So what we've got to say then is we've got an atmosphere hard to draw a straight line when you meet all the way across. That's dead straight. Maybe if I had a ruler. Didn't think that. That's our atmosphere. That's the daylight section above us. Now to scale, even that is way, way off. Way, 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 way off. Because if we think about it, if from here to the equator is 6,250 miles, no, well it is, it's 6,250 miles over the curve of the globe. Now this is the thing that we've got to really think about, because we've been fooled into thinking that the Earth is a globe for so long that the distance via the curve and the distance via the radius are different. It's 4,000 miles via the radius, but via the globe it's 6,250 to get to the same point. So we have to think of flattening that out, as they've done with this projection, and that's why the projection looks so wrong, is because it was built on the globe in the first place and then flattened out. So the map it's a poor representation of the landmass sizes and distances between things, but it's perfect for measuring the time and longitude. So over time, I think we need to stretch the map out even bigger, and then the continents will match what they look like, how big they are, and the true distances, because what they've really done is squashed 4,000 miles to the equator, I squashed 6,250 into 4,000. So that's why our map is so wrong, because they haven't stretched everything out enough. They've left it globe-sized for latitude lines. Each circle is a latitude line. They've left it the same as the globe. So that's where they made a mistake. So we have to factor in then 6,250 miles. That's quite a bit more than what I was thinking originally. It's 10,000 kilometres. So we've got 10,000 10k kilometres between each of these. 10k, 10k, 10k. Same there. So the same there. So the equator, didn't write that, did I? The equa. I like equa. Business name I registered a few years ago, all about my tattoo, was Aqua Equus, which also means water horse or water bearer. So equa is so close to aqua, and it's all related. It's all about water and light. This is life, man. This is life. This is us taking back our life. So, whew, you almost get a little bit excited sometimes, wouldn't you? So what we're actually seeing when the sun is here, if you lived out here, that's where you'll see the sun. But if you lived here and looking at the equinox, you're seeing the sun about here. You see the sun there, and then when it's at Canna, through a direct line of sight to here, you're only seeing it about there. So that's where you're seeing the sun from the Tropic of Kappa. From the equator, you're going to see it, the Kappa there, the Equa there, and the Canna there. From the Canna, you'll see the Canna overhead. That's why you get summer in the inner hemisphere, because that's where you see the sun. And if you're looking in winter time, it looks far more to the south. If you're standing here, it's all the way over there. That's why you get much colder winters on the inner hemisphere. And then the equator, the equinox, it looks about there. So that is why there's so many versions of the sun at any given moment in time, because each one of them is a personal apparition looking all the way into the firmament. Now this, right, this is why I'm trying to stress about scale, because even though I said each of these is 10,000 kilometres, this one here, from there to there, is only 100 kilometres. It's a fraction of 10,000 kilometres. You see where I'm coming from? It's a fraction. So really, even the firmament itself is way down here, and all of this stuff is squashed infinitely. But we have to draw a model to scale, because otherwise we'll never understand it. But you have to make some sense that this height compared to that distance is this much compared to that much. You know, it's way, 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 way out of scale. And it's the only way it can be if we're going to ever try and comprehend it in our minds. We have to expand it, just like they've done with the map. We have to expand it to just comprehend it. So what's happening, if we can, is that, now bear with me, because this is still a new thought that I'm toying with. We could say that the sun is out on an arm above the equator, and so as it rotates, you know, it goes around and around. We could say that, and then we could say that it goes around and around, and it spirals up and down throughout the year. And that works. It works for the model quite nicely, because it puts it in a direct line of sight through the firmament, through the atmosphere, for every viewer in every part of the world. That's why for us in Australia, when the sun's at its highest peak on the Tropic of Cancer, it looks to be far north. And then when it gets the lowest, right above us here, we can draw another circuit around here. That is why it appears directly above us on the Tropic of Kappa, December 22nd, which is now going to be Kappa the 1st. We're taking it back. So, and that's for everyone in the south. So Kappa the 1st goes around that line. The sun is lowest to the firmament. And so, as I say, when you look through a tube, the sun can still be doing this all the time, but as it spirals down, it seems to make a bigger circuit in the firmament. It seems to move out by a degree every day. And then as it goes back up, after Kappa the 1st, it goes back up to the 2 equinoxes, and eventually to previously June 22nd, Cancer the 1st, where it peaks, it will seem to make a smaller circuit. And so that's why we see it here. Yeah, we see it here. So these are circles around the Earth. Yeah, around the Earth, that's there. And so it moves up. And as it moves up, it makes a smaller impression into the firmament through direct line of sight by looking up at it. Another thought occurred to me. What if instead that Polaris was projecting, it was turning, so it's only going around this spiral, but it only appears to do that. In fact, it wouldn't be moving up and down at all. What it's doing is, if it's the all-seeing eye, and it's shooting out a beam, then each day it's shooting out a beam hitting a slightly different spot by a degree, another degree, another degree, another degree, another degree. And that's what makes it seem to move outwards. So as it hits the firmament, and it's rotating on its axis, it's projecting the beam into the firmament, creating a hot spot that we see through our direct line of sight towards the hot spot that hits the firmament. So it could be coming from anywhere and moving by a degree per day to still give us the impression of where the hot spot is in the firmament, which makes it make bigger and smaller circles above us from tropic to tropic, from turning point to turning point, with 2 equal days directly in the middle. So with that in mind, I don't like that at all the way down there. That's actually a bit of a void. So with that in mind, here's another thought. As I was getting to before, here is a little trinket that I got given from when I had a partner from New Zealand. It's pretty cool. It's got a little kiwi in it. But notice as I rotate it, see the refraction? How there's 2 kiwis at one point? And as you keep rotating it, there's the kiwi. It sort of keeps, and it's probably reflecting off the back. I don't know if I can get rid of the reflection. See, this is the trouble with prisms. Everything reflects, distorts, and refracts. Turn it upside down, you're still going to get the 2 pyramid. And look at all those other pyramids within it. So, if we understand a little bit about the nature of the refraction of light, this is where we take it to the next level, is I'll just draw them in. There's the first pyramid, and here's the second one. What have we got? We've got the Star of David. However, in 3 dimensions, it's a star tetragrammaton. Now, if you ever heard the word tetragrammaton, that's almost like getting into a bit of the Kabbalic sort of way of thinking. And it's, the tree of life. We're getting somewhere. So if the star tetragrammaton, which is basically one of these and one of those intersecting, and if it is spinning around, bring that up a little bit closer, if that is spinning around on its axis with the North Pole at the top, the 2 intersecting lines, there's one intersecting line, there's one intersecting line, there's another, there's another, there's another, there's another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6-pointed star tetragrammaton. Not very geometrical today, am I? Try and keep them equilateral. But in some places it's drawn way more like this. Just to try and give you a bit of visualization. Now if you could squash that down even more and put it all into here, this tiny little bit here, and spread it out all the way across this star tetragrammaton, and understood the refractive nature of the crystalline firmament and everything. So as you probably saw in the recent one where I just introduced the idea of this skylight, we call it a skylight. The inverted pyramid, the chalice, the Holy Grail, it's all coming together. If we have that rotating around above us, then for each one of us, we only see a quarter of the day every day. So, a quarter of the star tetragrammaton per cycle. So, if it went around once every 24 hours, half that time is day. So you've got 2 halves of the day. That's 6 hours each side, and then you've got the night, 6 hours each side. And so as it spins from each and every different perspective, say, we're in Australia, we're looking up. I've even got a triangle there too, as it is. If we're looking up then through the bottom side of things, then where it hits this point, the stars on that side of it are going to appear to be going the opposite way. You see where this is going? We see each of the star trails from each location as it rotates around above us, giving each place its own personal view of stars, which could all be way up really high here. That's why at the equator, that's the turning point. Look where the equator is, right above those 2 points. There's the southern celestial pole, there's the North Pole up through there. So it's fixed, but this one, we see it everywhere around the south. See where I'm going with this? It's this beautiful little pyramid can be the key to understanding the Southern Cross the southern star trails appearing to go the opposite way, because you have to see two of these intersecting to create a star tetragrammaton. So the tetragrammaton is the key to understanding why we see, why people in South Africa see, why people in South America see, the Kiwis see, why we see what we see. We all see our own particular refracted version of it, just as we see our own refracted version of the sun throughout the years, and we have our seasons. I think I've explained it. I think that should be enough to go by to understand how we go through the different moons, 13 moons of the month, of the year, the sun spiralling up to Canna the first, spiralling down to Kappa the first, Cancer, Capricorn, tropics, all above the North Pole. So the sun doesn't necessarily have to be projected from Polaris, but it's an idea worth thinking about. So it's like a lighthouse. So it's only rotating once per day. So it is rotating very slowly. So the sun itself isn't actually moving. It's the apparition of light it makes in our firmament that is moving. And so it can move 1,000 miles per hour, 15 degrees per hour, not a problem. And it will do it for everybody's personal point of view looking up at it. And so because we have day and night, then if it is out here above the equator, as I've said, then over here is the daytime, over here is the nighttime. And as it slowly rotates, around, then there's your night, there's your day. So it keeps going around and around and around. I think that explains seasons and the sun. So while we're at it, why not have a look at the moon? It's made out of cheese. So if we've got this squashed down, this is going to be really difficult to draw. Say about there. Actually, we don't really need to go that far anyway. We'll just ignore that. Yeah, that would be about Antarctica there anyway. So that's the edge of our dome. So that's the wall. That's where the M is. Look at that. There's the M for Mother Mary. And here, look at that shape. It looks like a diamond. Probably, I wasn't actually going to use this as a prop. This is a pretty cool one that my sister got for me one June 22nd many years ago when she was in London or visiting England, and she went to what's it called again? Come on, man, you know this. She went to Stonehenge, which we all know that's been artificially made back in the early 1900s, concrete and whatnot, and cranes, but it's not the point. They maybe just moved something. But anyway, there were people making these and selling them, and it's really cool because it makes all these pretty patterns, and it tells a story. Like, look at that one, what's that tell you? That's the story of Saturn, isn't it? This flower of life's all through it. It's a really cool little toy to play with and meditate and whatnot. So the Vesica Pisces, you can probably even see it as you play with this. It's you can sort of flatten it out. In fact, it's not really meant to go that way. If you keep it as the whole, the globe, so it's meant to represent all sorts of things about creation. So it's such a cool little trinket. every single intersection of these is a Vesica Pisces and Flower of Life. In fact, I've even got a piece of orgonite here, which Stephen Geddes from Moonlight Orgonite made. Should go and buy some of his stuff, it's awesome. You can sort of see the Flower of Life in this as well, where they intersect. So if we then round these off slightly, make that rounded, we'll start to see more and more the shape of an eye. Draw a circle within it, and then that's not the best one ever. And another Vesica Pisces. It's sacred geometry. So it's all sacred geometry. So all these straight lines could be a bit more straight in one dimension and curved in another dimension. It's a tricky one. I don't think I can explain it, but hopefully you can make sense of it. So we've got the intersecting lines. I don't even know why I do that now that I think of it. It's not even necessary, because what I want to do is talk about the moon. So if we then thought that this firmament, which is really only about this high, has the as above, so below, nature of light, everything's occurring. If the moon was made from the earth, as you've probably seen in some of my other videos, if not, I've got a playlist of moon videos, you can find it there. In fact, I've even got, it's the first one on my whiteboards lessons list as well, so you can start there if you like, save a bit of time. If the moon is levitated above the earth at this height, well actually no, it's at the 100-kilometre height, but we see it projected into this height. Now, I didn't give a figure for this one, but this atmospheric height here, I think I worked that out to be generous, let's just say 20 kilometres. I think it's actually less, possibly more like 17. It's 12 to 14 miles anyway, so put that into your mile-kilometre calculator and that'll give you a better figure than what I'm just estimating here, just to give a figure. So when we're looking up, and that's firmament B, yeah, I want to make that very clear. Our atmosphere is firmament B, the firmament is the firmament, so firmament A. So the alpha, the beta. The beta, of course, is the B is very feminine, the pregnant woman shape, the whole works. The boobs, the breasts, the baby, the silent B in the womb, all that sort of stuff is all within Mother Earth's breath, the atmosphere. What do we call the atmosphere? It's Mother Earth's breath. That's what's sustaining us every moment of every life. Just take a second and think about that. That is her breath. So the atmospheric layer, very, very thin, is where the moon is being projected into. So say it's a disk and it goes around the equator as well, so there's the equator, and it goes around and around. Then from everybody sitting on the surface, then they're going to see. So if you're at the Tropic of Cancer, you're going to see your moon here, you're going to see it, you know, everybody is always going to be looking up to see their own version of the moon, and so of course it will appear upside down or inverted either side of the equator. Now if this is your moon, and it's the, we'll call it the yin-yang, because that's what it is. So if you're looking at it from one side, and you're looking up at it, you're going to see it that way. If you're looking at it from the other way, it's just going to be upside down. I'm not even going to go into that. It's one of the silliest global arguments. They go, oh, why is the moon inverted either side of the equator you live on? That's why it's inverted. So now, this is where I've come across an entirely new concept about how it could possibly exist. Because if we've got this very, very flat layer of the firmament. So if that's the actual shape of our firmament, it would be above the Earth actually. I've drawn it too low. That's why it's not working. Let's say we just do a whole new Earth down here for the argument's sake. So that's our firmament now. The new one is the green one, the new firmament. If the moon revolves around and around it, at times it may go higher, making the moon appear a bit smaller, and at times they come a bit closer, giving us a supermoon. Now if it's, because it's super cold up at that height, notice, yeah, it's actually quite a bit higher. I've drawn this very poorly. I should probably do a whole new one about the moon, but sometimes explaining it without visuals works just as well. So if it's beneath the chalice, inside the firmament, then its angle facing the sun from above is where it's getting its light from. It could be doing like a double projection, if you know what I mean. It's shooting it up first, then back down. So the actual position of the moon could be completely opposite from where we think it is. And as I say, when it projects the energy down into the firmament B, that's where we see our apparition of the moon. It actually creates a holographic plasma projection of the moon. And that's why everybody sees the same phase everywhere, that the moon is currently visible to them. So it will always be visible over any half of the Earth at any given time. So that's why people in Australia can see it at the same time as people in America, because look, we're in the same half. You know, even people in Perth can see it at the same time as people in a lot of America. So it works very well on the flat model. It doesn't work at all on the globe because they're on complete opposite sides of the globe. There's no way we could be seeing the moon at the same time, but on the flat Earth model, absolutely we can. No reason at all why not. So all I'm saying is that the projection, when it comes from above, up around here, that height, into the firmament B, so it's about 100 kilometres high here, projects it into about 20 kilometres high, it creates a glowing apparition, because the very reason that we have sunlight in the first place is because the sun, creating its apparition in the firmament, creates enough energy beneath to stimulate all the noble gases. You know, that's where we get all our spectrums of fluorescent light from, for want of a better word. Neon signs, fluorescent tubes, all those things have the noble gases in them, and depending on the quantity and the mixture and the wattage that they accept, that tells you how much luminescence they give. Like the fluorescent lights I've got in my ceiling now, they're aquarium lights, so they give off a better blue light spectrum. It's kinder on the eyes than the normal yellow fluorescent lights that most offices and shops and stuff have. They're terrible on the eyes. So you want to do yourself and your health a favour, get some aquarium tubes. They cost heaps more. You know, they're like $50 instead of $5 or $10 out at Kmart, but you've got to go to a pet store to get them. But get the right ones for the right spectrum for your fish or your plants or your basically plants. Or there's even bird ones. There's ones specifically made for birds to encourage them to breed as well. Get the right spectrum and you'll have much better, much more natural light in your home when you're using artificial lighting. So the noble gases are what glow to create daylight. You know, the room is lit without, you know, I even shut the curtains over there because there was direct sunlight coming through and it just made poor light as far as I was concerned for the camera. So by closing the curtains, I'm still getting enough daylight to be able to see. So daylight is not sunlight. Sunlight is the light up here, and by the time it reaches through to you, it casts a very distinct shadow. Like you don't really see a distinct shadow here at all. It's a very hazy shadow from daylight. So, and that's actually I've got an artificial light now too. I'm getting really high tech. So, moonlight then, on the other hand, is reflecting solar energy from the firmament, from the moon, so it's sort of up here, into firmament B, and that energy in a direct line of sight for each viewer is where we see our apparition plasma holographic moon. So it's only 12 to 14 miles. Sorry to go back to miles for people who've been following me in metric, because I memorised all this stuff in miles, so about 20 kilometres, 18, whatever. That's why the moon looks so close, because it is so close. The holographic projection of it is so close. You can zoom right on in it with the modern cameras and telescopes and whatnot and see it in very great detail, but you're only looking at a 2D image of the moon. You notice how if you look from one side to the other, if you've got it focused, you don't have to change to still have clarity of focus of every thing where meteorites struck it and created a big explosion crater. So we all know that craters were just bubbles that burst on the surface, but you know, we sometimes have to entertain the helioists. So yeah, I believe that the moon is small and tiny. It was made here on Earth. It's not small and tiny, it's still big. Like a massive big bauble, possibly filled with helium-3 or something else that keeps it aloft. But it could also be held aloft by diamagnetism and superconductivity, because it's so cold up there. So if this is kind of flattish but cone-shaped, then the moon could be going around just like one of those superconductive things we see at fairs or whatnot. People are making them quite a lot now. Super cold, and this thing just levitates, and you can put it underneath the ring as well and push it around and it will still spin around. So the moon could in fact be a flat disk, creating these 3D projections, but I still tend to think it's spherical, or just the way that the shadows in the craters do change, especially down the terminator line. You still get strong shadows down the terminator line of a quarter moon. So it could still be getting sunlight, projecting it and bouncing it down. So the moon could be completely opposite side, bouncing it up one side and refracting it back down. You know, but there's no denying that a simple prism like this that you can just buy at the airport or a tourist store, it can show all manner of refraction of light. And it's got a black base, so that takes away a whole reflective surface as well, or creates another one. But if that was a star tetrahedron, two of these intersected at that angle, it could create all sorts of things, like, what's that Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? That made me think of another thing altogether. So I think I've made enough of a botch of that job. I can clear that off for now. And think of another image altogether, which is the diamond. Now, most people would think of a diamond as that shape. Okay, that's the diamonds we're shown on cards, but in the tarot, the original diamond is called a pentacle, and a pentacle is this shape. The pentagon, the pentacle. But then what's the next one? Is the diamond shape is actually more like this. That's how we would typically think of a diamond. And in fact, when you're typing in text now, when you've got all your predictive text happening, quite often you'll get a little image coming up and you can press it, like when you're posting on Facebook or even YouTube in the comments, you've got all your little emoticons. It will actually show you a diamond shape. And if you look at that's got 5 sides. They're not equal sides though, are they? The big one is at the bottom. And what are we told? Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. There's also that twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are above the world, so high, like a diamond in the sky. So Lucy is, in fact, Lucifer. And Lucifer is the light bearer, the Son of God, the all-seeing eye. And when we draw the Masonic symbol for the pyramid, the all-seeing eye part up here is always shown above the pyramid. There's like 13 steps or something in it. It's all coded and hidden in plain sight. And I think the trick is to decode all this stuff and own it. Own it, take it back. That's what we have to do. Don't be fooled in saying all these people doing the one eye symbol and, you know, the Masonic symbol. I mean, the Masonic symbol, you draw that one, what do you get? You get that sort of diamond. The inverse of that, as above, so below. So the Masonic symbol, of course, is that's a set square. And they call it always on the level. So always on the level is when the intersect is right through that point. And see how it's all coming together? So the all-seeing eye at the top of the pyramid encompasses the earth, and we see the sun through our personal pyramid because we see the sun coming up, peaks overhead, you see it going down. There is definitely something that we have to take back in all of this. The pentagram is a traditional sign of the whole person, the whole woman. It's actually a very feminine symbol. So what have they done? They've demonized it. They've done it everywhere. They've made the mother Mary Magdalene, Jesus's wife, the carrier of the bloodline, the chalice, the holder of the cup, the Holy Grail. They've called her a whore and said he saved her from being a whore and all that sort of stuff. And Peter, if you look at the Da Vinci picture of the Last Supper, he's got a dagger behind his back and he's looking at it with his other hand like to cut a head off. But Peter, the founder of the church, killed the Mother Earth. So that it's all allegory. It's all allegory, but that's what's happened. That's what's happened throughout our story, is that man has denied the goddess energy of our living earth. And that is what we have to take back to make the earth alive again. We have to clean every stream. Every single stream is filthy. It's disgusting. It's filled with animal feces and waste. We pump our sewage into it. We've got industrial waste into it. All our drains and rainwater pumps into it or drains into it. Why are we doing this to our waterways? We've got it so messed up. All the water that falls on the land needs to be collected and saved. All the waste can be returned into soil if we do it properly. We get the toxins out of our animals and ourselves' diets, then our wastes aren't wastes at all. They are good for the soil. You can feed them through a worm composting system with plenty of straw and grass clippings and food wastes, put the whole lot through. The worms turn it into the perfect fertilizer for plants. No more artificial fertilizers, no more pesticides, no more monocrops. Monocrops is the wrong way to go. Permaculture is the way to go. So if everybody had their own 1 acre of land, you'd be able to grow more food than you'd know what to do with if you used permaculture and you stopped wasting everything. You didn't let any of the water that fell on your roof get flushed into stormwater drains. I mean, stormwater drains, how stupid is that idea? But the biggest one, of course, is to grow hemp. Acres and acres and acres and acres of hemp, because from that we've got the building blocks we need to start rebuilding the streams. Now, nature does not work in straight lines, so no more straight line canals or streams or anything. We have to do them all in S shapes, the way water naturally flows. And where existing streams are, the first thing we need to do with our first crop of hemp, besides making a fortune off the seeds and the oil and the fibre, is to use the inner herd mixed with locally based sand or rock or mineral and lime. Now, I don't know exactly where you get lime from, but you can buy it in big bags at the hardware store. They use it in building all the time to reinforce concrete. So when you use it to reinforce hempcrete, you're making something that petrifies into stone. So if we start on the small scale at every farm where they're currently polluting the water, and we start reinforcing the streams and building up stepped banks internally, and then on the external side build bigger blocks to stop the cattle and whatnot getting into the water and mudding it up in the first place and fouling it up. And you can build troughs for them to drink politely. They can just walk up to it and they don't have to get in the water with their big stinking hooves and foul it up and have to keep walking so that they can get a breath of fresh water. They can actually stand at a trough at the correct height built for them and drink as much as they need, and it's not going to affect the water. And so our waterways, once they're clearer, we can breed as much fish as we want. We can do all sorts of aquaculture as we want. We can do so many things. We can swim in it as long as we're not covered in toxic sunscreens and shit. We'll keep all that stuff out of Mother Nature and just use shade as our sunscreen. Grow trees by the riverbanks. Shade prevents evaporation, keeps the water fresh and cool. You don't need sunscreen because you're not sitting out in the sun all day. Like, it's good to be out in the sun for half an hour a day over your entire skin. Take all your clothing off at midday. Expose all your skin for 15 minutes per side to the sun. Sweat out all those toxins. You know, the name Helios is where the word healer, healing, comes from. Healing light. That is natural health. You can't buy it at the pharmacopoeia. You can't eat toxins to get healthy. You got to sweat them all out. That's the purpose of eating food, is to draw the toxins out of your body and all the dead cells and poop them out, put them back into the soil where they're needed. And because we live in such a toxic society currently, we need to sweat them out as well. We are very, very toxic laden as a society in general. And it'll take several generations before we can get it out of our genealogy. We've been living the toxic lifestyle for so long, all based on the heliocentric system, the false god, the one that the great deceiver Satan gave us. The real God, Lucifer, the light bearer, in the sky with diamonds, is the good one. And yet we've been taught to fear him as the evil serpentine one with the forks and the tail and all that. That's Satan, the great deceiver. Lucifer, the light bearer, is Jesus. We can own that symbol back again. It is a sign of peace, of goodwill. All these things that we've been told are Masonic or Illuminati or Freemason signs, they took them from us in the first place. We're not evil for using them. We can take them back. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll be around. Cheers.